From an education system to an internal education system. Let's get it.
Yeah. I'm inspired. I'm inspired.
Greetings, Earthlings. My name is Sumet Chatterjee from the Flow Zone Academy, which means that I help you feel better and perform better. Today I'm talking all about the drawbacks or the loopholes or the flaws of the education system and how we can apply it as an education process for self-realization, self-knowledge, self-education, okay? Autodidactism. The first thing that I want to say is in schools there's sometimes a very poor grading system, okay? Students are forced to take different subjects, even subjects that don't resonate with them. If you keep repeating that process, you'll understand that there's something fundamentally wrong about forcing a child to do a subject that they have no interest for. Knowledge is being shoved down their minds, right? And the mind doesn't want to learn this information, but it's still being pushed down. And so we gain this kind of resentment against that, right? It's like we don't ask consent for the child, right? They're too young of an age to even ask for consent. Do you want to learn more about this? Do you feel like this is right for you? And in some schools, which can become like indoctrination camps or even, places which host a bunch of wisdom and knowledge that just gets into the child's head later on in their life, right? I'm sure maybe you might have experienced this too. Not really looking at the overall learning of the student, but, really getting pinned down on certain subjects that don't resonate with them, first and foremost. The next important one is the memorization, or they call it mugging in India, right? It's interesting how they call it mugging, because mugging means you rob someone, right? You're robbing them of something. And if you're just memorizing or mugging something, you're not truly embodying it or living it. Okay? It's less focus on practical knowledge. But you need to practice things if you were to survive in the real world. In my personal opinion, really good teachers should be getting paid way more. They're not inspired to teach. Because you see, I believe the teacher can almost be the way greater than the celebrity in a sense. However, we live in such a culture that we look at that rather than the person who's teaching us something, and it's direct. Like in a Gurukul, you'd go and you get that direct master to student transmission happening. A lot of people don't get that, and nowadays a lot of classes are becoming online, so you don't even get that one-on-one, that time with the teacher to really teach you something and learn something. Rather, it becomes more like a yelling contest of someone yelling at you from a state of high authority to someone being a receiver and just simply downloading that information. Some schools do have interesting classroom discussions, but as far as I know, a lot of the teaching style is very, very lecture-based. So kids just come in, they're taught not to ask questions, not to question anything. They sit down and they ask questions near the end. This doesn't really work as a functional way to, charge and engage the minds of students or practitioners of a specific art or science or any subject for that matter. True meaning of education is educere, okay, which means to lead out from inside. It does not have anything to do with someone telling you stuff. So actual education is meant to be internal. It's meant to be that self-realization. Someone can give you information, but it's what you do with that information that leads to that wisdom from that knowledge. Because wisdom is knowledge applied. Schools don't ever really teach us why this information is important or why it's applicable to our real lives. You see, what if we could learn about so many things that we hadn't learned in schools, like socializing or rebalancing our own energy systems, or being able to structure our lives accordingly so that we have meaningful and healthy and happier lives. Okay, it's really, really sad to see that someone is so depressed and sad because of their grades. It just doesn't make sense to me. This is so serious, in fact, in India that kids are contemplating suicide. So you start to understand that, hey, this is a really, really big deal, right? The pressure from the teacher onto the student. There should be more engagement and less pressure. More engagement means really unraveling the mind of the child and fostering creative geniuses. It's important not to outcast kids and just completely try and match the curriculum all the time and getting so rigid with the system that you've created for yourself. You see, once you get to an inner flexibility of understanding that, hey, this information that I'm learning can actually help me, and it's there to support me to get to a very specific goal and end result. Hey, now you're on to something. Now you're using your education. But moreover, it's a self-education. It's a self-realization. I don't need to read 500 different articles to understand one thing. I just need to go inwards with that subject, knowing some of the sources, but the real source being the one inside that connects you to the greater source. When you're so focused on MLA formatting and bibliographies, you forget about the actual application of the wisdom. You get so wrapped up in the academic institutionalized obsession over certain things rather than actually exploring and being kind to your own self and to your internal world. So this is what is required: a kind, just, and caring person with the wisdom and the intellect that can change and transform the world that we're currently in. Because we are at the dark ages right now. We need the Renaissance men. We need the people to step forward who are going to change things around. We need integration of the divine masculine and divine feminine to work together. The education system has harmed us more than made us greater. There have been elements that has made us greater, but there are also other elements that have completely taken away our creativity and our freedom of expression and our understanding that there are certain teachers who've really, really impacted you and made you feel unsafe in this world. And you know it, and I know it. So it's time that we reinvent the role of the teacher, the one who is the sacred practitioner of a specific art form, and really start to understand that we need better teacher training. We need more education for the educators. And this will become the true revelation. Because if you don't have mindfulness practice as a teacher, how are you supposed to handle all of those angry, bitter children who are completely lost in the world? Now, some of them may not show that they're angry or bitter, and they might repress it, but that still affects your classroom setting. That still affects the maintenance of the art form that gets passed on. You see what I'm saying? So it's really, really important that we consider the creativity of the child so that they can move forward and engage with their own personal victories and their personal understanding of, hey, this is who I am and this is who I'm evolving into. It's like if you were to guide a superhero in an institution like the X-Men, you understand that there's a range of subjects, but they're there to practice one specific area. In Hogwarts, there's specific different subjects, but they're there to practice their specific craft. In my college, it was a liberal arts, so I could actually explore the different subjects I wanted to take, and I would combine some subjects that were completely random that didn't make sense, right? Like I remember that I took a sound engineering class, right, to edit sounds and things like that. And I took a surreal poetry class, and I took a computing ecology class, and all these random subjects. I wouldn't be able to do that in a normal university or college, right? There's certain institutions that have such an authority and a strictness that they forget from the actual realization and the impact that they're having on the students. They teach them that life is not free, that they can't have everything that they want, that they've got to go through a very specific, limited process that someone else has decided for them so that they can finally succeed. And they will only gain recognition, clout, when they are quote-unquote academically gifted or successful. And then they go out into the real world and try and attain that through the same workhorse power. But that does not always happen. The schooling system is there to make you into a workhorse. It's not there to make you into a complete embodiment of your greatest self. You've got to differentiate these two and come back to the self-knowledge, the educere, the knowledge and the information and the education that is led out of you, that you bring up, that you purge the information that doesn't belong and you utilize the information that does. Let's get it to the Upward Spiral, gang. I hope this video gave you a new perspective. Hit that subscribe button. Let's go.